Singapore Noodles.
Can I get the Singapore noodle?
Singapore noodle.
If you've ever been in Asian restaurants abroad, you may have noticed this mysterious dish on their menus. And it's not just Asian restaurants, it's even sold in supermarkets and grocery stores.
Singapore noodles are everywhere in countries like the UK, Canada and Australia.
But anyone who's from Singapore knows Singapore noodles don't exist anywhere in Singapore. So where the heck did this dish come from? And why is it named after Singapore?
But first, I wanted to find out what Singapore noodles even are.
So I looked at a bunch of online recipes for Singapore noodles, and while not all of them are exactly the same, they all have a few main ingredients in common.
It's usually made with stir-fried bee-hoon. There's a lot of curry powder, and the dish is usually topped with shrimp.
Singapore noodles are widely believed to have originated not from Singapore, but about 2,500 kilometers away, in Hong Kong. The dish was invented in the 1950s or 1960s by Hong Kong chefs. Back then, Hong Kong was a British colony and a busy trading hub. So curry powder was an ingredient that was readily available. So why call it Singapore noodles? The theory is that chefs may have added the word Singapore to this noodle dish in order to make it sound more exotic and appealing. Singapore noodles exploded in popularity among blue-collar workers in Hong Kong restaurants. It was simple, cheap and easy to cook. The perfect combination.
But if the dish originated in Hong Kong, then how did it end up everywhere in Western countries?
When people from Hong Kong migrated to the West, the dish also travelled with them. Westerners also fell in love with Singapore noodles, and the dish went from being in Chinese takeaway restaurants to Chinese buffets to supermarket shelves.
Singapore food brand is very popular. Anything you put Singapore, people will come. Especially people who have never travelled this far, like our urban hawker in New York. People who have never been to Singapore are loving everything that they can't pronounce. Some of them don't even have passports and they enjoy it. So it helps build a brand culture.
So are there any similar dishes in Singapore cuisine? The closest local counterpart I could think of was Singzhou Mi Fen, or Singapore bee-hoon, a not so common dish that you can find at local zi char places.
So I went to order a plate to see how similar it was to Western Singapore noodles. And while there are some similarities, it's definitely not the same dish. Both Singapore noodles and Singzhou Mi Fen are stir-fried bee-hoon noodle dishes. But Singzhou Mi Fen is missing a very critical ingredient, curry powder. So after trying several different versions of the dish overseas, I feel like there's two ways that you can look at it. So you could say that the name Singapore Noodles is pretty misleading, as it could give non-Singaporeans the impression that this is an authentic representation of Singapore cuisine. Other dishes like laksa, Hokkien mee or even bak chor mee are far more local. But on the other hand, you could also argue that if Singapore is known as a melting pot of cultures, then Singapore noodles are kind of like that too. Stir-frying is a Chinese method of cooking, but curry powder is used in plenty of different Chinese, Malay and Indian dishes. And bee-hoon is also pretty universal.
If it brands Singapore and somebody does it so well, it makes somebody wants to come to Singapore and try the dish, then we've won. It's also like how we have Indian rojak. And our Indian friends are going, what nonsense is that? It helps place that country's food culture on a world map. Hey, it works.
It's not bad. It's actually not bad.
Thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to see more, don't forget to click on the subscribe button and the notification bell.